Hello and welcome to The Couch, your premier football show anywhere in the country right now here on ZTN, brought to you in partnership with Africa Bet. My name is Howard Msonza, and on this show we talk nothing but the world's most beautiful game, and our focus is solely on local football. And on The Couch, I'm joined by the Couch squad. How are you doing, guys?
Great.
Very well.
The first time that I've heard Mr. Teach say great in a long time. Is it because there were no matches this past weekend?
No, I'm just feeling refreshed, yeah, so let's leave it at that.
Oh, okay. All right. So we had the Independence Trophy this past weekend. I know a particular team that I'm not going to mention by name lost.
You've already mentioned it.
Now, I wanted Mr. Tish to come in.
The team with 7 million supporters, Dynamos, didn't go so well for them in Bulawayo. I think their 6-game unbeaten run coming to an end. But I think Highlanders were by far the better side in terms of the play on the field.
All right.
And the result.
We'll come back to that. So, yeah, what are we talking about on The Couch today? Well, there's a lot of excitement in Zimbabwe after the Confederation of African Football included Zimbabwe in the draw for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. Well, this despite Zimbabwe's ban by FIFA because of what they termed a third-party interference. In short, they were saying government interference. So this draw will be held tonight in Johannesburg in South Africa. And Zimbabwe is provisionally being included in that on a condition that FIFA will probably reinstate Zimbabwe. Well, this is what the streets want. The reinstatement of Zimbabwe Football Association is part of the world football family. And this means if this happens, this means that Zimbabwe will be able to take part. But there's a long story to it, Mr. Teach, because now I hear this needs to be done 2 weeks prior to the first match of the qualifiers, which is in June. So it needs to happen probably in May, which is next month.
Yes. I think the timeline is not very long, but if you look at it, maybe there's a glimmer of hope with the Electoral Congress, ZIFA's Electoral Congress, supposed to happen before that. Maybe that could swing the momentum. Because as things stand, I think it's going to be a standoff right until those 2 weeks before June. So I think we've got about 7 weeks of hoping and expecting. But obviously tonight we will focus on what's happening in Johannesburg with that CAF draw on tonight.
All right, so what are we saying in short? We are saying Zimbabwe's Africa Cup of Nations lifeline. Is this a lifeline? Will the Sports and Recreation back down on the ZIFA suspension? So, yeah, that's what we are looking at today. But first, let's look back at what happened domestically. And it's what I was talking to Mr. Teach about, the Independence Trophy, which was won by Highlanders. So last year, it was Dynamos. And now it's Highlanders, and the game was very temperamental, and Dynamos finishing the game with 10 men after Shadrack Nyawo was given a red card towards the end of that match. But more, what a game.
Yeah, it was a very good game. I thought the referee failed to take charge of the match because it ended up like the Atletico Manchester City match. You know, there was a lot of fighting on the field, and Nyawo was duly given a red card. He deserved it. He had been heckling and haggling throughout the whole match. His outbursts towards especially Stel Lingala throughout the whole match. I don't know why that was happening. Maybe because he's a Bulawayo boy, he's trying to prove something. I don't know. But it wasn't good for the neutrals, for football in general, or even for the sponsors. There was too much of that. And I think it overshadowed the actual match, or the actual proceedings on the pitch of play.
Is it the temperamental side or Shadrack Nyawo's red card that you're referring to?
The temperamental side. The whole match was overshadowed by the temperamental approach that was by both teams. At every 10, they were always approaching the referee or fighting or doing this. And Otherwise, it was a good game. But
All right, so match day 15 in the Kasolaga Premier Soccer League is going to be Highlanders versus Dynamos at Barberfield Stadium. What does this match do? Does it set up an exciting game? Or it gives the powers that be, those in charge of the match officials, does it give them a headache? Who should they go for? What did that match do, looking ahead to match day 15?
I think looking ahead to match day 15, I think the powers that be will be looking to find a firmer person with the whistle in the middle of the park. Arnold Ncube yesterday, I think he struggled from the very first minute of that game to try and get a grip of the game. And I think the players are being a big game. I could say the Battle of Zimbabwe, as people like to dub it. I think the occasion got to them. I don't know whether it was the carrot that had been dangled by Sarunga with all the money that was up for grabs. Maybe it was more of a money game than a good quality football game where we're celebrating our independence. And I pushed back on more a bit. He said good quality. I don't think so. I think watching there, I think Nomi Mapeza would have felt vindicated by his comments last time around, because it was low on quality, high on indiscipline. And, I was watching it and I was thinking, you know what, Mapeza could have been talking about Dynamos when he says teams are winning, but they're struggling to put together 5 passes, because I did not see at any point during that game Dynamos stringing together more than 5 passes. And that's a cause for concern in terms of the quality aspect. As for Highlanders, I think as much as they have struggled in the league, I think they're also unbeaten, but you kind of feel that the changes that they made to the technical team, with Joe coming in, Mandla having a bit of a buffer in terms of his job security, you could see they were moving the ball around nicely. And I think on match day 15, when they host Dynamos, I think they'll go into that game very confident if they can just keep their heads and, with the Highlander supporters backing them. Because I don't think Dynamo supporters, as much as there's 7 million, I don't see them filling up the Mpilo end like they did in this particular game, because this was for free. But I think when it comes to the paid
you had
matches,
to say that. So what kind of a match official, looking ahead to match day 15, probably maybe somebody in the mode of Hadlindazi, you haggling and doing whatever, and he's just holding his back pocket. Does this match require that kind of an official?
Yeah, I would think it would need someone who has got so much authority.
Brighton Chimene?
Brighton Chimene is accused of being a Dynamo supporter, so he would not be the correct person to put there, because in as much as we would not, we would basically say he's not, it would never go away that he is a Dynamo supporter. But Hadley, I think he would be the best for that match. Somebody who is quick to make sure that everybody who is involved is correct. He doesn't give to one, he gives to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then next incident, the next 5 people will get a card, and then everything will settle down and everything will move. But I wanted to come back to what Teach was talking about, the quality in terms of the passing. The night before there were heavy rains, and you also have to look at the fact that the pitch was not in the best condition. It has been used for drum majorettes and practices for the independence celebrations.
But the argument is Highlanders were playing on that same pitch. It's not like Highlanders were playing on a different pitch. So I understand it wasn't the usual good Barberfield's turf. Yes, was there were motorbikes and stunts being done. Yeah, but Highlanders were still able to move the ball around. Did
they move it like what you're saying, 5 passes?
Yes, yes. They had phases of play.
Were we watching different matches?
It's so good watching you guys, argue. Okay, let's drop it. Yes, we're talking about match day 15, which is yet to come. But this weekend, we're back to the Kasolaga Premier Soccer League with match day 12. And just looking at the log standings, just before that, because I know maybe pick of the crop, Highlanders traveling to Zishavani to face FC Platinum. We'll see how they will then move the ball around. This time, because there were no mass displays. There was nothing. Maybe things will change, but that's how the log stands just before match day 12. Dynamo still on top. And I just want to look at Highlanders and where FC Platinum is. FC Platinum position number 5, Highlanders on position number 10, and you look at probably the points different between these two sides, 19 and 14, about 5 points separating these two sides. What kind of a match are we expecting here?
I think this is going to be a good tactical game. I think both teams, FC Platinum and Highlanders, they like to move the ball around. And you look at Highlanders, I think, unbeaten in their last 4 or 5 games. So they'll have their tails up. FC Platinum, their young players finally coming to the party with Tando and Panache getting goals in their last win. And I think in terms of quality, this should on paper, be a very good game to watch. So I think that will definitely be the pick of the fixtures for match day 12.
I tend to agree.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I think it's also going to be a low-scoring match. You see, Islanders hasn't been scoring much, same as FC Platinum. Also, the fact that this will be a battle of possession, FC Platinum being probably the kings of possession right now in Zimbabwe at the moment. Islanders still building up to be that kind of play. But
what kind of play do they have right now?
Islanders?
Yes.
They're trying to do the
yeah, but
passing game.
what do they have now?
I don't know what to call it.
He just doesn't want to admit.
I don't want to get into that. But I'm saying they have not been playing the passing game that much, but they're building up to that at the moment. So it's going to be a close match, low scoring, and I'll still naturally go to FC Platinum being the winners because they are going to be, because they're going to be playing at home.
Oh,
naturally.
Okay. I thought you're going to say naturally because that's the team that I support. Anyway, what are we talking about today? We are talking about Zimbabwe's Africa Cup of Nations Lifeline. Will the Sports and Recreation Commission back down on the Zimbabwe Football Association's suspension? Remember, the executive board was suspended back in November, and after that, FIFA also then suspended Zimbabwe from world football. So we are looking at the qualifiers. The draw is on tonight, Zimbabwe included in that. They are in pot 3. Does this give us a glimmer of hope? Stay with us here on the couch. You're watching The Couch right here on Zim Papers Television Network. The show brought to you in partnership with Africa Bet. In the studio, I'm joined by the Couch Squad, Momoy and Mr. Teach. And we are talking about the lifeline that was presumably thrown at Zimbabwe football by the Confederation of African Football after Zimbabwe was included in the draw for the 2023 Cup of Nations qualifiers. Does this give Zimbabwe ample time to sort out their thing? So where I'm going to start now is what you brought up. There's an EGM which is penciled on for the 23rd of this month, where the councillors are going to meet and discuss the way forward and all that. Do you think that will be enough for Zimbabwe? Because there was a litany of allegations that FIFA threw at SRC, the issues before the courts and all that. Does the EGM solve? Let's start there.
I think the Honourable Minister of Sport, Kirsty Coventry, is on record. I think last week she was adversing the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Youth, Sports and Recreation, and she did say that they would not lift this suspension until the court proceedings, the court cases against the board members were done and dusted. So if we're looking at that, then and looking at usually how long these legal cases take to come to their conclusion, then it will be a hard no. But what I'm hoping for is that if we have an AGM that does the job for the SRC in terms of officially removing the current suspended board, then maybe the minister and the SRC might soften their stance now with an intention of trying to get us back. I don't know how it will play out at FIFA as well, because FIFA, as part of their conditions, have said you must drop the cases. That's one of the conditions, the many conditions that they laid out in the suspension. So the question now is if that EGM does go ahead and the councillors go by their word, because they've said that we want to put these guys out. That's the main agenda. If that follows through, the question now is, how does the SRC react to that? Do they then pander to the whims of FIFA? Because FIFA have laid out their conditions. Or will there be another tripartite between the board, SRC and FIFA? So there's a lot of variables in this. It's not as simple as just saying, you know what, if this EGM goes ahead, then, you know, it's a straight path to the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers for us. I think a lot of things, too many things, if you ask me, are dependent on people's feelings and egos more than just a clear pipeline to know that if we do this, the clear thing is, if the SRC convinces the government to drop, or the National Prosecuting Authority to drop the cases, that's a surefire way of making sure that suspension is lifted. But will they do that? I don't know.
Let me throw this over to Mo, because he mentions something very important. Because the EGM will come, and it's highly likely that the suspended executive is going to be shown the exit door by way of probably a vote of no confidence. So if that happens, does it still matter to FIFA? Because these guys are no longer there. Does it still matter to them, whatever happens on the sidelines, their court cases and all that, does it still matter?
For me, I think the EGM can solve our problems. Once the EGM decides that these guys are out, then we can move on, because they will bring in new people that will be running ZIFA. And because of that, if FIFA recognizes the new people that will be brought by the EGM, then what SRC is doing, they can do it forever. It doesn't matter, because FIFA can reinstate us, because we are a new thing. So I'm thinking the EGM holds the cards here. If the EGM decides these guys are out and they put them out, they put in new people, then present this to FIFA, and FIFA accepts to say, no, these guys are not there. So there's no need for them to go back to SRC and say, SRC will just be informed that, no, now Howard and Mo and Mr. Teacher, now the new board. And life goes on.
We have no interest in
because the Honorable Minister really did come out and say what she said. It's been 6 months since they banned the board, but there's nothing that the SRC has done. So I don't know what they're talking about when they are saying they are sorting out something. They are not doing anything. They're just being vindictive.
Yeah, but they've got that committee.
What's that committee doing? Have you ever heard the committee? Have they ever?
I heard they met.
The committee met. What is their mandate? Did they start
engage stakeholders?
When they met the way forward.
Do you realize that they are supposed to be done by the end of the year?
No,
and we are now getting into the 7th month. What are they going to be doing?
7th month of the year? Or?
No, of their tenure. What are they going to be doing? Are they going to do that between now and the end of the year?
All right, let's back up a little bit, because I'm looking at the whole picture here. We've got a suspended ZIFA executive, right? And we are all, looking at what we are terming the glimmer of hope, and we are solely focusing on the EGM, which probably can answer our issues. But remember, these guys are suspended. So from an SRC perspective, they are not in the picture. Can the EGM now come and presumably correct that by way of giving them a vote of no confidence, the suspended guys?
I think if they're given a vote of no confidence, I think they've given the SRC as well room to maneuver. The question is, how will they decide to maneuver? Because at this point in time, it seems like the Sports and Recreation Commission are working on principle. A lot of people, especially us as the media, have consistently reminded them that they did this before with cricket and they ended up having to do a 360 and come back. So I think now, part of what's informing the SRC stubbornness is to say, you know what, we're not changing our mind. So the glimmer of hope that we're talking about now with this EGM is that the EGM will now give them room to say, you know what, these guys are no longer part of ZIFA. We can continue. We will let, since they can even disown themselves from the court proceedings, because that's now with the National Prosecuting Authority, and say, you know what, in regards to the cases that are standing against Fulton Kamambo and some of the other board members, we can't do that because that's now happening legally. But you know, if the EGA comes in and states a new board, then they can still say these guys are still suspended. Technically, they can argue that we never unsuspended them. So they can save face and say, you know what, and support. But then another big concern, as much as I know we're talking about the SRC lifting the suspension, but the big question as well is, are we going to be able to play these games at home? Because the SRC has had a responsibility to renovate the National Sports Stadium. And if we do not, yes, the focus might be on the ban, but if we do not have bucket seats by June, then these qualifiers will happen, we'll be in the draw, but we'll suffer the embarrassment
of playing
of
away,
playing in
home
South Africa.
away from home.
So, I mean, the SRC also needs to take ownership of some of the things that it has failed. It has been very hard on the suspended ZIFA board, and some would argue rightly so, but they also need to say, you know what, they took over the National Sports Stadium from the Ministry of Local Government, took ownership of it. Now, I don't know how long, I've lost count. I think we're going towards a year. So I don't know if the SRC will be inclined towards having us unsuspended, given that the pressure that will come back on them in terms of now everybody will be looking at them, why are we not playing at the National Sports Stadium?
All right, so I'm looking for precedents here because we've got the World Governing Body, FIFA, and is there a case where they've lifted suspension of an FA without, reinstating of an FA board by, like in this case, by the Sports and Recreation Commission? Why am I saying this? When FIFA come in, they put what they call a normalization committee. But in this case, the Sports and Recreation Commission suspended these guys and they put their own restructuring committee, which I presume is supposed to be doing the job of what a normalization committee does. So in case the EGM comes and they give a vote of no confidence to these guys, what's going to happen? Because there is already a restructuring committee in place.
The restructuring committee is not recognized by FIFA. So as far as FIFA is concerned, it's a non-event. What SRC did, what SRC has decided to do, what SRC is trying to do, as far as FIFA is concerned, it's a non-event. FIFA, the stipulated steps that they gave are what they are waiting for. Until and when that board that was removed or that was suspended or that was banned is put back, then we will have football in Zimbabwe.
What are we talking about today on The Couch, your premier football show anywhere in the country right now? We are talking about the lifeline that was presumably given to Zimbabwe by the Confederation of African Football after Zimbabwe was included in the draw for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. So the draw is on tonight in South Africa, and Zimbabwe is among the teams that will go into the draw. So does this give Zimbabwe ample time to sort out their mess? And possibly when the qualifiers do start in June, Zimbabwe will be part of that cast. So, Mr. Teach, we are just keeping our fingers crossed, So we are talking about the EGM on the 23rd. So the EGM gives these guys a vote of no confidence. What happens next? Who comes in to bridge the gap probably from that particular time until we've got a substantive executive in place? Is it the normalization committee that comes in? What happens there?
I think it should be, we'll then have elections that will be set. I think there will be probably another date set for new elections. In terms of, I don't know if FIFA might be inclined then to bring in a normalization committee, because obviously this is not a normal situation where we have a suspended board that's been given a vote of no confidence. So it would make sense for them to bring in a normalization committee. But I think the bigger concern is what role will the ZIFA restructuring committee that's been set up by the SRC feel they have to play in this particular incident? Because we've seen the SRC trying to throw their weight around as well, trying to say, we're sovereign, we're our own country, we'll do things by our own books. So it's also going to depend, because the SRC can then come and say, all right, now, because there is no board now, you've given a vote of no confidence as the governing authority, the supreme authority on sport in this country, this is what we think we're doing. But I think a normalization committee would probably then mean that suspension is lifted, because I don't see a situation where we'll have elections before these qualifiers anyway. So I think if it can lead to a normalization committee, that could probably be the best for us in terms of us actually going through or with the Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers, which will start around June.
All right. You're watching The Couch right here on Zim Papers Television Network, and we are discussing the lifeline that was handed to Zimbabwe football by the Confederation of African Football. You know, the draw for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers is on tonight in South Africa, and Zimbabwe is amongst those teams that are in for that draw. So I've got a couple of questions here. If ZIFA are reinstated, apart from a favorable FIFA ruling, what else will football benefit from this?
I think the biggest thing would be money, because one of the biggest handicaps that we've suffered because of this ban is, we're not getting any of the FIFA funding that would come either for junior football or even for our women's football. Any of that funding, or we're talking about infrastructure development, in terms of, we're talking about the national sports center, any money that could have come towards that will now probably in line to start getting it again, and that will be a much needed boost for us. I think that's probably the biggest benefit of us getting unsuspended, and obviously getting a chance to take part in the qualifiers. We've talked about the need for us to prop up our junior players. We've got Bill Antonio, Jaden Barake. We've got so many players who are exciting. We know we've got the Chan finals that will happen as well. So in terms of opportunities, especially for the players who've been doing quite well in the local Kasolaga Premier Soccer League, there will be now a reward for FC Platinum, who were supposed to take part in the CAF Champions League or any of our other intercontinental club competition representatives. They would know now once again. Manika Diamonds, for example, could hope that they could take part
In what?
In the continental competition at some point in the future.
Every team in the PSL.
Every team
can
in the
hope
PSL.
for that.
Yes, but you know where my biases lie.
All right, so one important thing that Mr. Teach raised was the issue of ground.
Yeah.
As we are as Zimbabwe right now, Atina, kukutambira any international matches. And, however you want to look at it, this is a pertinent issue. Yes, we were suspended and all that, but things might change because that's what we're hoping. That's what everybody is hoping for.
Pertinent to who?
To you and me, because
yes.
if
to you and me it's pertinent. To the football fraternity it's pertinent, but to the powers that be, it's not. Obviously, they're not worried about it. If they were worried about it, this would have been a thing of the past. Why does it take 5-6 years for us to put bucket seats, and electronic turnstiles just to count people that are coming into the stadium? Why does it take so long? It's because there's no one who wants it done. There's no willpower. This is why it was easy for the SRC to suspend ZIFA, because they don't care about football. If they cared about football, they would have waited until these guys are proven guilty and then acted. But they they started by making them guilty before they proved it. Suspend everyone because of 1, 2, 3 people. If we, as the three of us, mess up, can we suspend the whole ZTN? Why cannot ZIFA go on? We remove the bad parts. But they didn't do that. So as far as I'm concerned, the SRC is not concerned about football. Not at all. They're not even worried about what's going to happen. They don't care about soccer. It's not in their... It's unfortunate because when you look at the stance taken by the DG, acting DG, he never consulted anyone in the football fraternity. Probably he consulted his friends and said, this guy is got to go, and he's got to go. And based all decisions on whatever they were thinking about, not football. Nothing is happening at the National Sports Stadium, Howard. And we are not going to play football. It's embarrassing, very embarrassing.
So before we move on, because this was a thorny issue, remember the National Sports Stadium was not under the gambit of the Ministry of Sport. And we had a lot of, chatter in the corridors, people wanting that to happen. Now that it has happened, what's stopping the Ministry of Sport in making progress with the National Sports Stadium?
I think in tracking this story, obviously, since that transition was meant to happen from local government to sports ministry, I think there was a time, I think we even went for a press conference at the sports ministry offices, and we saw bucket seats or examples of bucket seats in the press conference room. I think there was a tender process. At one point, I think that tender had been approved, and then there were questions over how that tender process was done. But, and then that was recalled, but we haven't really gotten any updates over how that happened. But, it's not just about us going to tender. I was reading in Uganda, I think they've actually gotten a deal. Qatar has actually donated 12,000 bucket seats to the Uganda Football Association after the Qatar 2022 World Cup, I think because of good bilateral relations, to say, we will no longer need this, so we're giving you these. So maybe there's other ways. Why don't we look for corporate partners who can come in? If they don't have the capacity to do it, why don't they look for corporate partners who can come in? Or even someone who wants to do corporate social responsibility, a term we love in our football, and probably one of the reasons why we don't go far, and say, this is what we want to do for our football. Somebody comes in, because the ministry, for whatever reasons that they've not communicated to us as the media or even to the general public, have not explained why they have not done it. So we can only speculate, but we are saying to them, so if they're saying that, then they should also be open and honest to say, you know what, guys, we want to do this. We need to fix the National Sports Stadium, but we need your help. And those who have the capacity, if they act like they've got it under control, people will just sit and watch. And there's some people probably want them to fail, because like Mo was passionately saying right now, some people believe they don't care about football. So they need to show us that they care by taking initiatives and being proactive in terms of saying, this is where we are. Or saying, we can't find suppliers in Zimbabwe. And then some suppliers might come and say, no, we can do it. Right now we can only speculate.
Howard, but why are you saying they don't have money? Who said they don't have money? Who said they don't have money? Did they say?
I'm not really sure.
So if they didn't say they don't have money, say, well, why should we suggest that? They should have said it if they didn't have money. They should have. Going through a tender process. Why were they doing that? It's because they've got the capacity. And Howard, this is government. How much would it cost? Really, just one stadium. One stadium for your international matches.
You're watching The Culture right here on ZIM'S television network. We bring you this show in partnership with Africa Bet. Stay with us. You're watching The Couch right here on ZIM'S television network. And what are we talking about today on your premier football show anyway in the country right now? We are talking about the lifeline that was given to Zimbabwe football by the Confederation of African Football. Zimbabwe included in the draw for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers. The qualifiers get underway in June. So yeah, according to what came through from FIFA, is that, just 2 weeks before the qualifiers, if anything can happen, just 2 weeks before that, then Zimbabwe will be able to play in the qualifiers. Are we going to play in the qualifiers? I think that's the biggest question. And we were just talking to Mo and Mr. Tishal Couch Squad, and yeah, they are coming up with varied views on what they are thinking. Let's now move on to some respected journalists in the field of sport, and let's hear their views on this issue.
We should consider what these tournaments can do to players. It's the players who suffer most, not the Kamambo-led executive, because as far as I know, Kamambo is already employed by the GMB, but it's the players who suffer. Look at Tina Jadebe. He was spotted at the 29 AFCON, and now he went to Turkey, and now he's in America. So we should see what these tournaments, our players participating in these tournaments, what they can do to the players. So I think FIFA has been clear. We should reinstate the Kamambo board, or or our players don't participate in these tournaments?
It's a very delicate issue because ZIFA have had their blunders. ZIFA have messed up big time in terms of their running of football. And the SRC, in a way, is justified to have the ZIFA board suspended. But then there's also the international law from FIFA who govern the football internationally. That law is clear that if there's government interference, you'll be suspended, and that's what happened to Zimbabwe. We were fortunate to participate at the AFCON, but now we won't be so fortunate to take part in this, if we are in the draw, but we won't take part unless they lift the ban that they placed on ZIFA. There's very little time for them left for the ZIFA board to save the rest of their team.
Yeah, those are some of views from some sports journalists on the issue that we're talking about. And I think what we're concurring with there is, look, a lot of people love football. And we want Zimbabwe to be part of the world football. You know, besides the monetary benefit that comes from FIFA, there's also the issue to do with the careers of the players. I think that's the biggest one, because we've got a couple of players who are playing outside the country. We heard of teenage Hadebe. What happens if suddenly things are not moving at his side in the MLS? What happens to Tino Kadewere? He's struggling right now at Lyon. What happens if they terminate his contract? What will happen to him? What will happen to Marvelous Nakamba? We've got a whole lot of other players that are, you know, attracting interest from outside the country. A couple of weeks ago, we had Bill Antonio wanted to go for trials in Belgium. Does he go there, you know, with the current scenario? What's really, is the Africa Cup of Nations important? Let's start there. Is it important?
I think without a shadow of doubt, it is very important. I think maybe for us as Zimbabweans, we might be conflicted about it because of our own unique experiences at the 5 previous editions that we've gone. But I think, you know, in terms of where our players are, and even if you look at the ambitions of the Nakambas and the Kadeweres that you mentioned, or even the upcoming players like the Bill Antonios, I think, you know, we are past COSAFA glory. I think this has to be the next step in terms of our development and our ambitions as a country. And, you know, we saw it in the last AFCON where, you know, we saw, even with everything, all the noise that was happening around our national team, we saw that there were some performances, especially that game against Senegal. So, and, you know, a few minutes, a few seconds actually could have changed the fortunes and would have gone on to, you know, do what a Gambia ended up doing. So, yes, the Africa Cup of Nations is important, but the question that and the stance that has always been taken by the SRC is, you know, should we sacrifice the long-term health of our football for one tournament? Where even if you look at the draw that's happening tonight, right? We are in Port 3, and this is based on the FIFA rankings. So it means there's Port 1 and Port 2, and there's going to be different groups. Only 2 teams from each group. We are in Port 3, which means we're going to be with a team from Port 1, Port 2. Port 1 has got the 12 best teams in Africa. Port 2 has got 12 to 24. We're in Port 3. So even our likelihood of getting out of that group.
Okay. My question, I know more you're eating. So my question, because you are talking about the long-term healthy of Zimbabwe football.
Yeah.
So let's suppose we miss this tournament. Do you think the next tournament will be in Port 3? Or would then need to go through qualifiers for us to even go into Port 4?
We'll have another repeat of what happened in the World Cup qualifiers. We'll have to battle it out against
and the preliminary
the likes of Somalia.
Qualifiers.
No, so I mean, so it depends on which side of the fence you're coming from. I don't think there's a definite, it's almost like a very blurry situation. Because like you rightly said, if we don't take part in the Africa Cup of Nations, then even in the qualifiers, then our ranking, the longer that we're in the wilderness, the lower our ranking is going to become, and the harder it is going to be for us to return and compete at the highest levels. So in that, I'll give you that. Yeah.
Gentlemen, let's separate the two. The administration and the playing. Okay?
But playing
those are two-
is administered by the administrators.
Yes,
We can't play if there's no
let's
administration.
separate those two. Look, guys, if you are looking at how Zimbabwe played, the last two AFCONs, this same board that we are checking out managed to make sure that that team qualified. They've got their wrongdoings and whatever they did, which is not pleasing, or which we feel we condemn. But in terms of playing, Zimbabwe, whether pot 5, pot 4, pot 3, we've been able to qualify to the AFCON, which is my main worry. Why are we stopping now? What really? How are we benefiting by stopping?
So it comes back to the question that I asked Mr. Teach. How important, as the Africa Cup of Nations, do we look at that particular tournament and say, okay, going there is probably what is termed development in football?
This is the highest level we have ever gone now at. We have not been to the World Cup. And if you keep on going to the Africa Cup of Nations, we are going to get better. Better enough
That's development for you.
Yeah, then better enough for us to be able to qualify for the World Cup. And then what else do you want?
All right, let's go to the streets and hear what the fans think about this issue that we're talking about, the lifeline that was thrown to Zimbabwe football by the Confederation of African Football.
Inini maview ndeyekuti zvone aveve ana veZIFA ana kamwende vave ava veve ngavambomira vave achiri tikadedi 10 years tisimo mvura it's I think it's okay.
They should reinstate the board, like vanofana kudzorera board ranga riripo, because people learn, vanhu vese vanokanganisa, so kukanganisa kwakaita board vanofana nguva regular, like izvezvi lesson ravo vatoriona and vakavadzorera things will go, because izvezvizvi kana vakavasavadzorera like havasi vanhu vacharega vanotamba bhora vachabhanwa neFIFA nechichi, and then maconsequences acho anoramba achingokura, so vanofana kudzorera board, then vanhu vobva vakondinya bhora lesson vanhu vadzidza, vanhu vebhodhi kana pane pavakakanganisa vadzidza, and then we go forward.
Ini ndofarira nguti itange nyowani nekuti isusu kumarcation kwedu tine vanhu vanotamba bhora chaizvo, hawazvitarisise muno tine tarenda rebhora, wana tinawo vari kutodawo masponsa ebhora kumarcation kwedu, nekuti pabhodhi riripo iri vari kutarisisa vanhu vagara vane mari kudhara ndo vari kuda kuti vapinde kubhora. Saka tikaonawo sponsor kumarcation kwedu tinoonawo zvakanaka, tinosimudzirawo nyika yedu pabhora.
Views from the streets, they don't hold back, eh?
Speak their mind. They're the owners of the game.
Yeah.
And the owners have different opinions.
But
I want to concur with the guy that says SRC should just reinstate that board.
But Minister, no, we are not doing that.
Yeah,
that's wishful thinking, actually.
No, but
I know,
if the EGM cannot remove these guys, then the SRC should just do the noble thing and reinstate the guy. Howard, this is the election year. These guys, do you think they're going to survive the elections if given a chance to compete? This board that is suspended, they will never win. And you know, they are so hated because also it's a narrative that has come from us as the media. We've portrayed these guys as probably the worst. But if you look at,
are they not?
If you look at the results on the pitch, they've done well.
In spite of the shortcomings.
Yeah,
of the
in
ZIFA
spite
board.
of the shortcomings.
No,
but they've done
nothing
quite
to
well.
do with what the board did.
It has got everything to do with
reached a certain level of football development that even with their missteps and their shortcomings, we're still able to qualify. Yes. I don't think
even without. That's what we're trying to say.
Yeah, even right now, without with a suspended board, we can go and qualify for AFCON.
So you think the board is
quick question?
Yeah.
Do you think the Sports and Recreation Commission are banking on the EGM to solve this impasse that's there right now?
I wouldn't say that.
Because they know what the streets are saying in terms of reinstating the suspended executive and Zimbabwe being reinstated back into the football family fold.
Yeah, I think they would want that break. They would really welcome that break, because from their own standpoint, it's going to be difficult for them to come down again to say, no, now we are going to let you guys
come back.
You can come. They don't want to be seen as that. But if they get a leeway through the EGM, then yeah, I think they want that break.
The draw for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers is on tonight in Johannesburg in South Africa. Zimbabwe is in port 3. What does this mean? Does this mean it's a lifeline to Zimbabwe football after we got suspended by the international board, which is FIFA? Do we look at this and say, well, this is probably what we were looking for us to be back in world football? So in short, Topemberere,
I think
looking at everything else that we have spoken about, the EGM and all that.
I think let's keep the champagne on ice just for now. I think let's not even put it in the fridge. Let's put it in the back storage room, because there's a lot of things. There's too many variables that are in play. I think obviously there's going to be some excitement tonight when we find out what group we're in, and then we look at our chances of potentially getting out of the group. But I think until the whistle goes for the first qualifier, I think we just need to play it by ear, or not even for the first qualifier, until those 2 weeks prior, and they say we get the green light. Before that, I think there's just too many variables and there's nothing clear cut. But like Mo also said, the EGM is probably the window that the SRC is looking at as well, to say, what, I don't see them backing down and saying, because we want to go to Africa Cup of Nations, we're reinstating the board. I don't think that is happening in a million years. But the EGM votes this board out. It gives them a way to say, yeah, that board we don't recognize they've been voted out. Let's see. If FIFA decides to come in with the normalization committee, I don't think the SRC will fight that, because as long as they are not being told what to do, I think, because at this point now, they will have an opportunity to say because I think that's their main focus. They want. I remember the very first press conference that the SRC had. The chairman of the SRC, Gerald Mulochwa, he said, and I think a lot of people haven't focused on that. He said, there is no way. We sat down, and as a board, we decided our legacy cannot be that we let this board get away with this. So I think if we just go back to that, whatever has been said and done after that. So if there's anything that will make it seem like they let this board get away with it, I don't think the SRC will be agreeable to that. If a normalization committee means that they can even continue pursuing their court cases, then they'll be vindicated and saying. And the other option, maybe in the long term, is eventually, I think towards the end of this year, the SRC's, this current board's tenure is also coming to an end. So maybe but then that won't be in time for this particular Africa Cup of Nations draw.
I know the producers of the show didn't ask us to talk about this, but I think it's tied to what we're talking about. The Warriors currently, they don't have a coach, and Caetano Tembo was released by SuperSport. Do you think maybe
Tembo should come back home?
he should come in and fill in that void?
I think he'll be a good coach, but I don't know whether it would be attractive given all the uncertainty around the Warriors. You laugh.
This is the difficult one now. Why do you really want Caetano Tembo to?
We need a coach.
Why specifically Caetano
No, we need
Tembo?
a coach, and I was just thinking, because we've been chopping and changing and recycling. Norman Mapeza came in. Yes, he was on an interim basis, but he came, he did, and we kind of know, the ceiling, if I can use that, they can reach. So do we need somebody new like Caetano Tembo?
There's no one who will accept this job until this issue is sorted. So we may waste our time talking about Caetano Tembo and all the other options available, but as long as this issue,
we just need to be prepared. Nobody will ever.
If we do go ahead, I foresee on some interim arrangement again, continuing until this issue is solved. Although, I think for Caetano, I'm sure he's going to get other offers in South Africa, and then I think after that, I'm not sure if the Warriors job will still be as attractive, especially if we've got a suspension hanging over our heads.
I think we're done. Let's leave it there. The Couch, your premier football show in the country. right now. Brought to you on ZTN and partnership with Africa Bet. And what were we talking about today? We're talking about the lifeline presumably thrown at Zimbabwe football by the Confederation of African Football. Remember, the draw for the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers is on tonight in Johannesburg, South Africa. Zimbabwe is part of that. They are in Port 3. So if that happens, do you see us, when June comes, participating in the qualifiers? Thanks a lot for joining us. Thank you to the Couch Squad, Momoyo and Mr. Teach, as usual, your insightful, unfiltered opinion. Yeah? We always welcome that.
That's pretty
Always
great.
a pleasure.
All right, so the Couch is back again next Tuesday right here on ZTN. My name is Howard Msonza. Thanks so much for watching.